Hello, everyone, and welcome to our How to College virtual chats. My name is Rick Garcia, and I'm a coordinator in New Student Connections here at the University of South Florida. New Student Connections is an office available to new and continuing BULLs to support you in your transition and get you connected with a variety of resources and information here at USF, whether they have to do with academic topics or helping you build community and make friends. These How to College virtual chats are your opportunity to learn more about those resources, as well as a variety of academic and institutional topics. In the announcement sections, you will see a URL sent. That is our attendance link. So if you can go ahead and please give that a quick click and let us know that you're here with us. And then you will get an evaluation at the end of the session tonight, just so you can give us some feedback, a few quick questions, so we can keep making these better for you all. I'd like to give you a quick overview of what this session will look like before we dive in. Our topic tonight has to do with the Writing Studio, which is a great resource available through the Academic Success Center here at USF. So in a second, we will get to know some of our student leaders that are here with us tonight, as well as a great campus partner who's going to let us know more about the Writing Studio and all of its great resources and services. After we hear some more from this campus partner and get connected with some of that great information, we will then have an opportunity for you all to get your burning questions answered with a Q&A session. You don't have to wait until the Q&A to send your questions in though, so as the presentation is going, as you think of things or as you need some clarification on anything, go ahead and send your question in and then we'll be sure to get to it once we open up the Q&A after that presentation. And a few additional quick housekeeping pieces. This session is currently being recorded, so if you feel like you want to go back and catch up on any of this material later just to refresh your memory, or if you know someone that couldn't join us for this live presentation, they'll be able to catch this content later as well. So be sure to check that out on the New Student Connections YouTube channel or on the New Student Connections website. Additionally, we're really excited to create this space for you all to learn more about these resources as well as get your questions answered. With that, this is a part of the University of South Florida. Something that we really believe in here are our principles of community, one of which is dialogue with respect. So we're going to be sure to really embody that tonight and keep our questions relevant to the chat content at hand. In a moment here, I'm going to turn it over to our peer advisor leaders, or PALs as we like to call them. PALs are student leaders in New Student Connections who are the boots on the ground and y'all's first-hand resource to get you connected to a variety of these resources at USF and available to help support your transition and experience as new and continuing BULLs at USF. The first PAL that will be joining us is Cheyenne, and Cheyenne is a third-year student majoring in health sciences. Joining Cheyenne, we have Cameron, who is also a junior student majoring in marine biology. Take it away, y'all.
Thanks, Rick. Like he said, I'm Cheyenne, and I'm excited to be here with you tonight. I'm a third-year student from West Palm Beach, Florida, and I'm majoring in health sciences. Today, we'll be learning all about the Writing Studio, including writing college writing strategies, brainstorming ideas, and ways to access writing support resources. By the end of the session, you'll all have some great tools and information about using the Writing Studio.
That's right, Cheyenne. I'm Cameron, and I'm a junior student here at USF from Las Vegas, Nevada, majoring in marine biology. I don't know about you guys, but I'm pretty excited to learn more about the Writing Studio here at USF today. We have a wonderful guest with us here today that is an absolute expert on campus when it comes to the Writing Studio. So please allow me to introduce Dr. Kristen Gay, an assistant director in the Academic Success Center. We'll be in great hands learning more from them today.
All right, thank you so much to the PALs, and thank you all for joining us tonight. My name is Dr. Kristen Gay. I am the Assistant Director of the Academic Success Center, and I specifically oversee the Writing Studio, and so I'm really excited to talk to you about college writing strategies, and I'm hoping that there will be some useful takeaways for you, whether you're an incoming freshman and you're transitioning out of high school and you're brand new to college writing and you want to learn more about what writing looks like in college and some strategies that can help you be successful. I'm also hoping this will be helpful if you're transferring to USF and getting used to a new university, new expectations for what writing will look like. And of course, if you're a continuing BULL and just want to learn more about resources that are available to you on campus. So And I'm especially excited because in the writing studio, we work with so many different writers. We see a lot of freshmen who come in and say, this is so different. You know, what my expectations were in high school are so different from what my teachers expected me in college. And I think really if you have some strategies in mind and you know what is expected of you with writing, that will make things a lot easier for you in college. So I'm really excited, and I hope that you'll find something valuable here to take away. And I also hope you will feel welcomed to USF if you are new to our community, and that you will feel welcome to the writing studio as well. So the plan for tonight, I'm going to share a few tips with you on writing strategies that I share with the students who visit the writing studio, and also strategies I share with my students in the writing courses that I teach, and even in my tutor training class where I prepare writing center tutors. The first of those is to develop a writing process. So I know we've all been there probably, if we're honest with ourselves, that night before a big paper is due and you're scrambling to do research and put together a paper and meet a certain word count. And we've all been there, but in college, that's really going to make your life difficult. And if you can plan ahead and come up with even a loose writing process that will give you time to go back and look back at your work, revise, maybe even seek feedback from your instructor or your peers, and it's going to help you be more successful and less stressed, which is always a good thing in college. So this is just an example of what a process might look like for you. Certainly there's no one writing process. So I know some people who don't brainstorm, they just jump right into writing, or some people don't like to make multiple drafts. They like to just write one draft, edit it, and submit it. So just keep that in mind. But a few aspects of a writing process that you might want to think about is, first of all, pre-writing. So brainstorming is one idea. Maybe you've tried mind mapping if you're a visual learner, where you draw out different ideas you have and connect them. I even have had students who've drawn cartoons of different sources talking to each other, and that helps them put together their ideas. Creating an outline is one really popular strategy for thinking through ideas. And talking, sometimes even just saying to a friend or a roommate or even a parent is, hey, can I just talk to you for 5 minutes about my ideas for this paper? And maybe that will help me come up with an idea or think through how I can structure an idea for a paper. Drafting, you may have done some of this in high school, but I highly recommend that you do this in college if not. So sometimes it takes the shape of a rough draft, where you maybe just try to get all your ideas on a page. You're not worried about how good they are. You're just trying to come up with ideas. A second draft where you maybe start to refine those ideas and say, oh, I don't think this belongs here, or I have a better example I can use for this, or maybe rearranging your ideas a little bit. And then a polishing draft where you look for grammatical concerns and maybe look for sentence fragments or commas or things like that at the end. Seeking feedback from peers and instructors is really important. I know with COVID and with a lot of classes going online, there may be less opportunities for formal peer review, but that doesn't mean you can't reach out to your classmates or to a roommate or a friend and say, hey, can we swap papers? Can we give each other feedback? And of course, the writing studio is always a resource for you as well. We do offer online appointments this summer, and we plan to do so in the fall as well. So we are always available to give you that feedback that you might be looking for. Revising, one strategy for that, again, in this kind of COVID world where you may be doing more revising on your own, is to read your work out loud to yourself. This is something that we do in the writing studio because it forces you to slow down and really focus sentence by sentence on what you've written rather than kind of scanning through. And that will help you catch errors that you might miss otherwise. And last, reflecting. This might feel silly, but it's actually really important just to take even 5 minutes to think about, when you finished an assignment, what worked well? What did you do that you want to keep doing? Kind of pat yourself on the back for things that that was a really great idea I had, or I'm really proud of myself for taking the time to brainstorm or get feedback. And even reflect on things that didn't go so well. Oh, next time I want to make sure I leave more time for revision, or next time I need to do this differently. I need to learn more about APA format or something like that. So again, these are just parts of a process that you may want to think about and adapt based on your writing process and the assignments that you receive. So number 2, and this might feel really obvious, but it's still very important, is to closely follow directions. So in college, you're going to have writing assignments that look very different. You might be writing lab reports, you might be writing research papers, literature reviews, literacy narratives, and your instructors will probably most likely give you directions for all of these types of assignments. They'll give you a prompt or a rubric sheet, and you want to really closely look at these documents because they're going to give you a lot of clues as to how you should proceed and how you can be successful with this assignment. So interestingly, many instructors say the most common writing errors occur when students don't follow directions. So the good news is there's something you can do about that. There are some strategies that you can put into practice to make sure that you're closely reading assignment guidelines and to the best of your ability fulfilling those guidelines. So a couple of suggestions for this. Read your assignment or prompt very closely. I like to underline keywords, especially in the writing studio when I'm working with students and I haven't heard the prompt before. We underline together. I look at words like analyze or argue or define. That gives you a very different insight into what's expected of you. If you're defining something, that means something very different than if you're arguing about something. So pay close attention to action verbs, keywords, even kind of specific details like 5 sources. It's really helpful to keep a close watch on those. Listen closely in class or in lecture when your professor describes the assignment. They may drop other suggestions or ideas. They may mention, oh, I really like when students do this, or it's really great when students do this in their papers, or they may give some clues about what they're looking for. It's great to jot those down when you can. Just kind of collect those tidbits to be extra successful on your papers. Sometimes your professors might give you a model paper, and if they don't, you can always ask and say, do you have a sample paper that we can look at, or is there a model that you'd like us to follow for this? If so, that can be really helpful as well in terms of getting an idea of what's expected and what other students have done previously to be successful. And of course, if there's a grading rubric, you want to closely review that. You want to see, what's emphasized here. Are they paying a lot of attention to grammar? Are they paying a lot of attention to formatting? Maybe they're really strict with MLA or APA or Chicago. Maybe they are really concerned with research and evidence and all of that. So you want to look for what seems to be very important to your professor based on the rubric and make sure that in those areas, to the best of your ability, you've done the best work that you can. All right, tip number 3. So this is more of a disposition than a specific strategy, but it's really important because research shows that the most successful writers are those who are open to adapting their approach and who feel that they have more to learn. So it's really important to be open to feedback, especially as an incoming college student. We see this a lot in the writing studio and in some of the writing programs where I've worked. So students who come in and say, I'm a good writer, I don't really need to learn anything else, I know I'm a good writer. They tend to not be quite as successful as writers who come in and say, yeah, I have some strengths, but I'm open to learning new things, and maybe you have something new to teach me that I haven't tried before, a new genre or a new style of writing. Usually that openness to learning and openness to feedback makes you even more successful because you're less afraid of failure and of trying something new and more interested in growing. So if you can, do your best. It can be difficult to receive feedback, especially on our writing, because writing is very personal, but do your best to try to receive feedback without taking offense. I'm sure we've all gotten feedback before that, oh, it just kind of hurt us, or we felt like it wasn't fair, but do your best to think of that feedback from another person's perspective. Sometimes things that are so obvious to us when we're writing are less clear to a reader who doesn't share our experiences and our perspective and the knowledge we have about a particular topic. If necessary, you can always ask for clarification. You can say, oh, I didn't understand this comment, or can you tell me for my next draft, what can I do to improve or to learn more about, if they say you need to work on citations, what can I do to learn more about that? In some cases, it's helpful to even take a day or two to process feedback and think it over before you reach out. And that way, sometimes the more you think about it, the more it can make sense in some cases. And last, be patient with yourself. Learning is a process. Most new skills take time to learn. It's very rare for someone to immediately adapt to a new writing situation, new genre without, excuse me, without having any struggle or challenges in their way. So be patient with yourself. Your professors know that you are being challenged, and as long as you are open to learning, open to feedback, and willing to put in the work, that will make you much more successful, and I think will make you a lot happier as well in your college experience. And last but certainly not least, practice strong writing. So it's difficult to characterize strong writing because, as I mentioned before, you might have very different types of writing assignments in all of the classes you're taking, between lab reports and research papers and literature reviews. But there are a few principles that generally apply across writing situations. Not always, but a few strategies to keep in mind in your papers that you're writing for classes. First of all, hedging. When you can eliminate hedging or minimize it, that's usually a good thing. So words like might or potentially or possibly or it could or sort of. This seems, excuse me, seems to be the case. Those words that kind of limit the confidence that you have in a statement that you're making. You want to try to minimize that when you can. That will make your work seem a lot more bold, confident, and will cut out some potentially unnecessary words. Now, it's true in some science writing that you need these words. You can't just state that something's true if you're conducting your first experiment. But in other cases, you can cut these words out and it will make your writing a bit stronger. Also, empty phrases. These are kind of fun, I think, to look for once you know to look for them. Phrases like due to the fact, and with that being said, in order to, in fact. Excuse me. These words don't really add anything, or these phrases don't really add anything to what you're saying. So you can usually cut them out and eliminate them. Excuse me, I have a frog in my throat. You can usually eliminate them and, again, make your writing even more impactful without these sort of empty phrases weighing it down. Add adverbs, so words like happily, loudly, strongly, barely, perfectly, inconclusively. Usually, if you have an adverb, and you can usually identify them with the ly at the end, adverbs are adjectives that modify verbs or describe verbs. Usually, instead of using an adverb, you can just choose a stronger verb. And so instead of saying she said loudly, you could say she yelled. So you're just using one word, and it's a stronger verb than she said loudly. So again, they won't apply in all cases, but in many cases, if you practice these three strategies, you will have stronger, more impactful writing with less kind of empty phrases and jargon throughout. And last, I add this as well because, again, in this COVID, current circumstances with COVID and with online learning, this is really an opportunity to be your own reader. And I have a couple of suggestions that are sort of adapted from what we do in the writing studio that I think might help you to do this. So first of all, while you're brainstorming, try talking through your ideas and recording yourself. So some students I have like to set a timer, 5-10 minutes, record themselves talking, stop the recording and listen to it back and see, oh, that was a good idea that I had, or wow, I just explained the whole organization for my paper. Sometimes it can be intimidating to look at that empty screen, that blank white page ahead of you. Sometimes it's a lot easier just to talk through it. You can start to get those ideas out. I've worked with students before who did this and they had the entire outline for their paper in 10 minutes rather than spending an hour staring at a blank screen and feeling that anxiety. So it might be something to try, especially if you're a verbal, you find it easy to communicate verbally and struggle a little bit more with writing. And think about what ideas stood out to you, what came across that might be a good starting point for your work. Second, one thing that I like to do myself, and I encourage all of my students to do, is print out the papers that they are working on and read them out loud to themselves. We do this in the writing studio. We always print copies of papers and read it out loud with a consultant. And this is a great way to catch errors. It's also a good way to hear your own voice, which we can't always do as writers. If you read it out loud, it can give you the opportunity to say, oh, I really liked how I said that, or that sounded kind of weird. And it can give you really good insight into how your writing sounds to somebody else. All right, so lastly, I just want to tell you a little bit about the Writing Studio, which is a resource that is free and available to all USF students, both undergraduate and graduate students. All of our appointments are 45 minutes long. They're available every week from Sunday to Friday. So the only day we're closed is Sunday. And we do have both morning, afternoon, evening hours. So we have a good range of open appointment times for you. We have trained peer consultants who are available to work with you. We have peer consultants just means that if you're an undergraduate student, you will work with another undergraduate student. And if you're a graduate student, you work with another graduate student. So you work with students who are in some of the same classes you are. They've all been trained. Our undergraduate peer tutors have all taken a class in Writing Center Theory and Practice to build their tutoring skills. They've all been chosen because they are exceptional writers and readers. And possess great tutoring skills. So you're in good hands, but they also have insight into what you're experiencing as a college student. They may even have insight into some of your classes, like, oh, I took that class too. And, here's what I learned, or here's a strategy that I've been using. So we find this to be a great model for our writing studio. We can work with students in all majors and at any stage in the writing process. So we see a lot of students from public health and the sciences and biology. We see a lot of students from English and first year composition and philosophy. So we see students from across the university. And at any stage in the process, we have writers who come in and say, I'm just brainstorming ideas. I need someone to talk to just to get some ideas on the page. Those are really fun appointments. You might walk out with a thesis statement or a list of topics to look for or to look into. We also can work with you, as you're putting a draft together, and at the end, as you're working on polishing and revising, we can help with that. We can help with citations. So even professional genres, we have students who bring in resumes and cover letters and personal statements, especially during the summer. So we can offer support in those areas as well, which the last thing mentions too, lab reports, research papers, honors theses. We have consultants from all different majors. We have science, cell and molecular bio, and we have philosophy consultants, and we have consultants from English. And so they can all offer different areas of expertise to assist you. A few tips quickly about how to best use our services and just suggestions to help you get the most out of an appointment that you might make with us. First of all, it's great to come to us early if you can. So if you get a writing assignment, you're starting to struggle or you have some questions, it's good to come in as early as possible. If you come in the day before it's due, we have less time to help you and give feedback. And in some cases, we might meet with you and work with you on a draft and then say, hey, if you want to come back before you turn it in, we can look back over it and make sure it looks good. So it's always ideal if you can come to us early on in your process. Do your best to plan ahead for deadlines. So if okay, in 2 weeks, I have an assignment due, I'd like to get feedback on it, try to book an appointment, a week or two out. We do sometimes get booked up at busy points in the semester, like midterms and finals. So it's always great if you can kind of plan ahead and make an appointment in advance. It's always good too if you come with questions you want to ask. Oh, I know this paragraph's been giving me trouble, or my teacher said I need to focus on citations and I don't know what to do about that. That can kind of help us make sure that we're doing what you want us to do, helping you with the questions that you have. But you can also come in and we can just offer feedback if you're not sure exactly what you want to focus on in your session. And last, come prepared to collaborate. We are a very collaborative space. We will ask you questions and welcome you to ask us questions and collaborate with you on your work. And really, we want you to be in the driver's seat. We want you to be in charge of your work, and we just want to help you be successful. All right, last but not least, you are always welcome to email us. Right now, with all of our consultations being online through Microsoft Teams, we do have available appointments if you email us at writingstudio@usf.edu. Also, I just wanted to share my personal email in case any of you have questions for me about college writing or anything like that about the Writing Studio. I'm always happy to help and chat with you. So my email is also available there. And I just want to say thank you for your attention, and I look forward to hearing what questions you have, and we especially look forward to working with you in the Writing Studio.
Thank you so much, Kristen, for that wonderful presentation on the writing studio. I know I definitely learned some new tips about improving my writing skills, and I hope you did too. We are now going to move on to the Q&A portion of our presentation. Feel free to send in any questions that you may have for Kristen, or Cameron, and I while we move through the third question. Sorry about that. Our first question is there a limit to the number of times you can meet with someone, or is it free to meet with someone in the writing studio?
Yeah, great question. So there is not a limit on how many times you can meet with us. Usually we limit appointments to 2 per week, though you can certainly come back as many times as you'd like throughout the semester. And if we're able to, if demand allows, we are also willing to let you make more than 2 appointments per week. We just start off with that as our general guideline. That way we can work with as many students as possible. And what was part 2 to that question? I apologize.
Is it free to meet with anyone in the writing studio?
Yes, totally a free service and for all students.
Okay, next question. How varied are writing expectations between students in and out of the Honors College?
Yeah, that's a good question. I know Honors College writers, I believe, write maybe a bit more. From what I've heard, I believe they have quite a few writing assignments. I think out of the Honors College, it really varies by discipline, from what I understand, although I hear from students that I work with across disciplines and tutors I work with across disciplines that they all have pretty intensive writing expectations. Even in the sciences, a lot of my science students have lab reports, and they may look different. It may not be a research paper, but they may have literature reviews or public health proposals, but they do still have writing assignments. So yeah, I think I would say maybe there's a bit more writing in the Honors College, but really across disciplines at USF, there's an expectation that you will write quite a bit.
What are some good websites for APA or MLA guides?
Great question. So probably the one I recommend the most is the Purdue OWL. They have really wonderful and really up-to-date guidelines on APA and MLA. So there was a recent revision to the APA manual last fall, and so they update it very quickly on the OWL. So that would be my go-to resource. Of course, there's an APA and MLA style guide, and so if you feel like I'm going to need this pretty often, you might invest in that, but usually the OWL can answer most of your questions. We also have handouts on the Writing Studio website, so you are always welcome to visit our website and look at some of the resources that we've compiled there. We are in the process of revising those, so you may see some updates in the coming weeks towards the end of the summer before the fall semester, but we also have resources there to help you.
Thank you, Kristen. A student would like to know if the Writing Studio will be open at any time during this pandemic, and if so, what will the wait times look like?
Yeah, so we have been open throughout the summer. We're still open now. We'll be open in the fall, so we're staying open. We have been remote, so we have not been meeting face-to-face, if that is what you are asking, but the plan right now in the fall is if the university reopens, we will offer face-to-face consultations on a limited basis. And of course, we'll be observing social distancing guidelines and, all of the university guidelines for returning to campus. But we do plan to have face-to-face consultations as well as online consultations. So if you won't be on campus or would feel more comfortable, we have online options for you, and we have those during the summer as well. So we only have usually about a week or 2 between semesters when we're closed as we transition for the new semester.
All right, thank you for that answer. Can you help students with discussion post questions, and then they have their class with discussion boards and assignments like that?
Absolutely. I just booked a few appointments for discussion board posts today, actually. So yes, we can help with any kind of assignment. Even we've had students bring in before emails, and I have to write an email to my professor, and I'm not sure how to phrase my question, or I'm applying for this job and I don't know. I'm kind of struggling to understand this job ad. Or so even if you're not, submitting an assignment for a class or kind of a traditional appointment that we might think of, we can always help with that. And definitely discussion board posts for a class, we can certainly help there.
I would also just like to add that I did not know before today that you guys helped with discussion posts.
Yeah.
I kind of really regret not knowing that, as like a lot of different classes have different requirements for their discussion posts.
Mm-hmm.
So knowing that you can help with those is a big, I want to say, benefit going forward in my college experience.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
Moving on to our next question though, what should I bring to my appointment?
Sure. So for in-person appointments, we have asked in the past that you bring 2 copies of your assignment. So one for your consultant to look at and one for you to look at. And the reason for that is traditionally we have taken notes and encouraged you to take notes as well on your draft as we are giving feedback. We also ask that you bring questions, any kinds of questions that you have. Also, if you have like a rubric for the assignment or a prompt that your professor has given you, it's always great to bring that. And some students like to bring, although it's not required, but some students like to bring feedback they may have gotten from a professor, like if they're revising a draft or revising a discussion board post or something like that. They like to bring, okay, this is what my professor told me to do. How do I implement this feedback?
Yeah, I'd like to share my experience about me going to the writing studio. I had this assignment for my anatomy class, and I wanted to go to the writing studio for them to help me with my grammatical errors and help me fix with any mistakes I had in my paper. So I had brought a copy of my paper, and I had read it to one of the writing teachers, and they told me anything I can improve to my paper. So I knew that I was like getting the best feedback as I can, and I am getting really good grade on my paper. So I just want to thank the writing studio for that.
I'm glad to hear that. It's always fun to hear, oh, I got a good grade after visiting, or sometimes students will come back to us after we worked with them on a personal statement and they'll say, oh, I got into grad school, or I got into law school or medical school. So those are always really fun stories to hear, and I'm glad you had a good experience.
Yeah, thank you. I know they were very helpful for me. Our next question is, what's the most common writing style, MLA? And then I'll combine another question saying that, like, you did mention the Chicago writing style, so if you could talk a little bit more on that and like what teachers expect from students to format that.
Yeah, good question. So most common, I would say it differs. I think if you're in the sciences, probably the most common will be APA. If you are in the humanities, I see most often MLA or Chicago. So it really depends on what you're studying. In some cases, your professors might let you choose. So when I teach, I usually let my students choose what they would prefer to work on. But usually, I would say usually it kind of depends on your major and the courses you're taking. So if you're in a humanities course, I would probably just expect MLA or Chicago to be expected. Sciences, social sciences usually use APA, although you would want to get clarification from your professor for an individual class. And Chicago style is a citation style that is used pretty often in books. And so if you read academic manuscripts or even kind of popular culture academic books, you may see books about like medicine or science, but they're written for a more popular audience. Often those use APA format. And APA, it's very similar to MLA or APA, or Chicago rather. It's very similar to MLA or APA, but instead of those in-text citations, they have footnotes. And so you'll see at the bottom of the page those citations, or sometimes you'll see at the very end a list of notes that are noted in the text, but they're not fully fleshed out. And the idea is that it's less distracting for readers if they're not cited right there in the middle of a sentence. So it's very similar. You still cite your sources, you just do it in a different location. Hopefully that helps. And we can help with this too at the studio. If you, for example, maybe you're not familiar with APA or Chicago or MLA and you'd like some help, we can always help you with that. and kind of give you an overview of a particular style.
Thank you, Kristen. Next question seems to be more for me and Cheyenne, so I think we shall answer this one. What was our experience getting used to college writing as students? For me, my high school did not require a lot of major writing assignments, so it was a pretty steep learning curve for me, especially when it came to lab reports. I definitely wish I had spent some time in the writing studio when it came to those. Luckily, I had a TA who was very willing to help and helped me through a lot of what the requirements for lab reports were. And without those meetings, I don't think I'd be where I am today. So definitely use the resources available to you, especially the writing studio. I regret not going there if you're having trouble with the writing assignments.
Yeah, and I just want to add to that. I think what you said is really important about Cameron, about talking to your TA or your instructor. And that is the most important advice I can give any of you as you enter college or continue college, is use your instructor or your TA's office hours. They're there to help you. And, you know, the writing studio will always help and can help, but your instructor is the one who will be grading your assignment. And so if you can go directly to your instructor and say, hey, I'm having this question, or can I run my topic past you to see what you think? That's a really important resource. And they have office hours that are available to you. It's always good to go ahead and use them. And it also shows that you're invested in the course and that you're seeking resources to be successful.
Yes, I definitely use office hours to improve my writing skills, because like each professor wants something different, different style of writing. So you just want to know like what the professor wants. In one of my classes, I had to write a thesis statement that was 3 sentences, which I wasn't really used to in high school. So I went to office hours to get a little bit more clarity on the assignment. But I know the writing studio definitely helps out with that, so definitely take advantage. The next question that we have is, I'd like to visit the writing studio, but I'm really busy. Is it worth my time to make an appointment?
Sure. So this is a great question because I think it's really challenging. I think ideally we all want to take advantage of resources that are available to support us, but it's hard when you have assignments due and you have personal lives and maybe jobs, and you're new to college. You have all these great experiences and organizations to join. So I think yes, which might be an obvious answer from the writing studio director, but I think it's worth your while, because I think it can actually save you time, time that you might spend staring at a blank page, or time that you might spend, working on a paper and turning it in and then getting feedback that, hey, this doesn't actually meet the guidelines for this assignment, or, you didn't proofread this, and then you have to go back and revise and try to go through that whole process after you've finished the paper and turned it in, and you have that extra stress. So I think it's nice to just make that investment ahead of time before you turn in the paper. Set aside 45 minutes and say, I want to make sure my ideas are coming across clearly. I want to make sure, the consultant can double check my work and make sure I don't have any major errors, that I'm responding to the prompt fully. It's a great way to check your work in that way. Or if you're at that brainstorming stage, I have found, and I have used the writing studio myself when I was a student at USF, and it was really helpful for me with brainstorming. Instead of just kind of sitting around and spending hours looking at my Microsoft Word blank screen, I would go talk to someone and get ideas on the page and get started. So I would say yes. I think, it's certainly an investment in time, but I think especially as you're making that adjustment to what expectations are for writing in college, you're getting comfortable with what professors are expecting of you. I think it's a great use of time.
Thank you for that wonderful insight. Next question is, what are tutors like in the writing studio?
Yeah, so the tutors, as I mentioned, are undergraduates and graduate students and their peers. And so you work with someone who is at your level of study, and they've all been trained and chosen because they are identified by faculty as talented writers and readers, and interviewed by me and vetted. And then I teach a training course for all of our undergraduate tutors on writing center theory and practice. And they learn about theories for working with writers and philosophies for how to tutor, and also practices for how to do that. So they're really talented. They're really kind people. They all are working in the writing studio because they want to help other writers be successful and because they love to write themselves. And so it's a very supportive and welcoming space. No one's going to bash your writing or make you feel bad if you made a mistake. We all are learning, and we all honestly just love to work with writers. That's something we're very passionate about in the studio. And they're all students like you, so they understand the pressures that you can face. They have all gotten weird feedback before. They've all been stressed about finals, and so they can really relate to your experience. And they have just the added insight of also being trained to work with you and being effective writers themselves.
Thank you for that. The next question that came in says, you mentioned what to bring to an appointment, and what do you suggest students do to prepare for an appointment?
Good question. Yeah, so I would say, it's certainly not required, but just best practices, I think I would look back over your paper and try to just be really familiar with it. That way, for example, if you have a long paper and you don't know if you'll be able to get through the whole paper in your session, you might say, okay, I want to really focus on my introduction and the early part of my paper. And then if we have time, we'll look at the other parts. Or, you may look through it and say, okay, I know I have these questions, and kind of even write them down if you want to. That way it gives you the chance to kind of think about what are your priorities for the session? What do you want to get out of it? Because we can talk to you and we'll come up with something we can talk about that you're doing well and maybe that you could work on, but it's always ideal if we're doing what you want us to do in the session. So, and last, I would say it's always a good idea to look back at that assignment sheet. If you have the chance, look back at it, make sure that all of those guidelines, 5 sources, APA formats, make sure you have an argument, with evidence, whatever it is in the assignment guidelines. It's always good to double check that, make sure that you're fulfilling those guidelines. And I think that will help save you some time as well in the session. And even if you're not before the session, you can say, I know I need to add 2 sources, but here's where I am in light of what the prom's asking me to do. So I think those strategies will just help you be even more prepared for your session and will help you make the best use of that time.
Thank you, Kristen. I definitely feel like I now know how to be ready to go into an appointment with the writing studio. And speaking of appointments to the writing studio, you mentioned that the process for signing up for them is to email it in and you'll schedule it somehow, but it was a little vague. Can you please walk us through that process?
Yeah, sure. So to schedule an appointment, you want to email the writing studio at usf.edu account. And what we'll do is ask you to complete a survey where you just tell us about the assignment you're working on and your availability for an appointment. And then we use that information to set up an appointment for you through Teams. So you'll receive, after we do that, we ask you to allow a day or 2 just for us to process requests. It's never 2 days, it's always a day or less. But we process the request and set up your Teams appointment, and you get a confirmation through your email. And all you have to do is click on that appointment link when it's time for your appointment, and you're good to go. So, and your tutor will walk you through the process. It's really nice through Teams because you can share your screen. You can say, okay, here's my Canvas site. Here's what my professor is asking me to do for this assignment. There's a way to share your papers through Teams. And it kind of works like Google Docs, where you can upload a paper and you and your consultant can both be highlighting and making changes in real time, and you can both see the changes that are happening. And then, of course, you can save that at the end of your session. So it's actually a great tool, I think, for appointments, and very easy to use. But yeah, all you have to do is submit that request. Once you do that, you get the link to your Teams appointment and you are good to go. The one thing we do ask is that you use your usf.edu account to contact us, because that is the way that we can set up appointments through Teams. So we can't use Gmail or something like that, because USF gives all of us free access to Teams. And so that's just one tidbit that's helpful to know, I think. Hopefully that clarifies the process. Feel free, though, if you have other questions, I'm more than happy. happy to help. And we'll walk you through it too. If you email the writing studio at usf.edu, we'll make sure you get set up.
All right, I think we received our last question, and it says, are general writing expectations sometimes outlined in the syllabus of a course?
Yeah, good question. Yeah, I think they are. It depends on the class, I think. Sometimes I hear from students sometimes that they have different strategies for picking up on writing expectations. So sometimes it's in the syllabus and the professor will say, I expect that all writing will be error-free and MLA formatted and with clear sentences, or whatever the case is, no I. In other cases, it's a little less clear. And so in those cases, you can always ask. You can always say to your professor, I know we have this upcoming assignment. I want to make sure I understand the expectation. So can I ask some questions like, do you have a preferred style? Do you want me to use MLA or APA or Chicago? Can I use I? Can I use first person? What kind of, can I speak from personal experience, or do you want only research-based evidence? So you can always ask those questions if they don't tell you. I hear from students too that they're very savvy, and probably some of you are as well. They'll pay attention during a lecture, and the professor will say, oh, and paper should be in APA format, and I'll say, okay, and I'll write that down. Or they'll pay attention to how a professor, if they're very strict in their delivery and demeanor, they kind of assume, okay, they might be a stricter grader, expect a more formal style. So always those context clues are helpful, I think, but always feel empowered to go talk to your professor. They are there to support you. They want to see you succeed. It's not meant to be a mystery or a test of your mind reading abilities. All of the professors I talk to, and I work with professors across the university in the writing studio and in the work I do in tutor training. And they're all really passionate about student writing. Even I talk to professors in organic chemistry and philosophy and anthropology, and they're all really passionate about student writing. They think it's really important. And they also want to see students succeed in writing. And so they want students to understand their assignments and know what's expected of them. So if you ever feel like the syllabus isn't super clear about what's expected, or I feel a little unsure, they're a resource for you. They want to be supportive, and the writing studio is a resource, but again, always feel empowered to go ask your professor, hey, I want to get some clarification. I want to do what's expected. Can you let me know what that looks like? Hopefully that answers your question.
And I can definitely add on to what Kristen just said. The professor will tell you. If it's not outlined in the syllabus, it's either going to be in the assignment or the professor will tell you. One of my composition classes I took my freshman year, we switched halfway through the year from APA to MLA. And that was one, outlined in the syllabus, and two, outlined in the requirements for each assignment as they came up. So once again, as she said, just make sure if it isn't stated anywhere, talk to your professor. Shows you're invested in the class, as she said earlier, and that you actually want to be able to succeed in the class. And for professors, that speaks a lot than just kind of riding through the assignments, not really investing much. And I'd like to say thank you to Kristen for all the wonderful info you've given us today. Do you have any key points you want to emphasize for us?
Oh, sorry. Thank you for having me, and thank all of you for attending. And yeah, I would just say, please come see us. We want to see you succeed, and we want to support you, especially as, in undergraduate courses, as you're taking your required classes. You may be taking writing classes or have writing assignments in very different courses. And so the Writing Studio is a resource, no matter what class you're in, no matter what stage in the process you're in, no matter what kind of writing assignment you have, whether it's a lab report or a discussion board post or a lit review, even a creative writing assignment, we can help with all of that. And again, I want to say, always feel free to go to your professor's office hours. They may come back. No, they won't. They'll be glad that I said that, because I know they would love to hear from you. And we are all excited that you're going to be USF Bulls, and I wish you the best of luck in your new undergraduate college career with us. And I welcome you anytime to reach out to me or to the Writing Studio.
Those were some great questions, everyone. Hopefully this time was helpful for you to learn more about what writing in college is really like, as well as the really great resources, information, and tips from the Writing Studio and from Kristen here that's available to you all to get you set up for success as far as writing at USF. Thank you also to our pals for being here with us tonight and sharing a little bit about their perspective and their experience. To connect with us as New Student Connections, you can go ahead and follow our Instagram, which is at the bottom of your screen currently. There you'll be able to stay up to date with our upcoming virtual chats, as well as some other events that we have coming for you all. And then again, just want to reemphasize to make an appointment with the Writing Studio, ask any general questions, or just stay in contact with them in general. Email writingstudio@usf.edu, which is also currently displayed on your screen. At this time, you should also see our attendance link being sent one more time for you in the announcement section of the Q&A. So go ahead if you haven't already and give that a click. Let us know that you've been here with us so you can give us some feedback and share your thoughts. We hope to see you all at our next How to College chat this upcoming Monday, July 13th at 8 p.m., where we'll be learning more about the Counseling Center. And then for more information about these virtual chats and some other great opportunities for all Bulls this summer, please check out our summer website, which is also displayed on your screen right now. Thanks again for joining us to learn more about How to College, and as always, go Bulls!